The silver capsule pierced Earth's atmosphere with mathematical precision, its trajectory calculated to avoid detection by primitive human monitoring systems. Inside, Xyler of the Quantifiers performed final mission protocol checks. His species had evolved beyond emotional weakness eons ago, their society built on pure logic and efficiency. As the appointed scout, his task was straightforward: assess Earth's threat level and resource extraction viability. Preliminary scans indicate optimal landing coordinates, Xyler murmured to himself, his metallic blue eyes analyzing scrolling data. The ship's intelligence had selected a remote location with minimal human activity for his arrival. Something was wrong. The landing coordinates suddenly shifted. Environmental interference? A malfunction? Impossible. Quantifier technology did not malfunction. Yet the capsule veered sharply, descending toward a densely populated area. Xyler's normally steady pulse quickened, a physiological response his species engineers had deemed necessary for survival scenarios, nothing more. The capsule crashed through the roof of a dilapidated building, bounced across wooden floorboards, and skidded to a halt against a wall covered in chaotic, multicolored patterns. Error. Serious error. When the hatch finally opened, Xyler emerged into what appeared to be an abandoned warehouse, converted into some sort of communal living arrangement. His specialized ocular implants immediately began cataloging the environment. Paintings in illogical arrangements, musical instruments with no apparent systematic organization, living spaces defined by draping fabrics rather than structural elements. "Oh my God, are you okay?" Xyler turned to find a human female rushing toward him, her facial features arranged in what his cultural database identified as concern. She had wildly curly hair dyed multiple colors, wore loose-fitting garments with no apparent utility, and moved with erratic energy. "I am unharmed," Xyler replied, activating his human language module. "I apologize for the intrusion. I was testing a prototype vehicle." "That's your car?" the human asked, peering around him at the partially concealed capsule. "Wow, that's some experimental design. I'm Maya, by the way. Welcome to the Kaleidoscope." "The what?" "The Kaleidoscope, our artist collective. You crashed right into our community space, but don't worry, that section needed renovation anyway." She laughed, producing a sound that seemed disproportionate to the situation's gravity. "I am Xyler. I must contact my superiors about the vehicle." Sure. But first, let me introduce you to everyone. We're setting up for the Wildflower Festival. It's a total disaster right now, but it's our disaster." She grabbed his arm, a completely unexpected physical contact that momentarily disrupted his neural functions. Before Xyler could protest, Maya dragged him through the warehouse space, where humans in various states of disorganization were constructing installations, painting, playing instruments, or engaged in what appeared to be recreational consumption of stimulants. "Everyone, this is Xyler. His weird egg car just crashed through our roof." The humans barely seemed concerned about this catastrophic event. One merely waved without looking up from a canvas. Another shouted, "Cool name, man," and a third approached with a strange brown liquid in a ceramic container. "Coffee? You look like you could use some." Xyler accepted the container, scanning it discreetly. Caffeine, water, oils, nothing immediately lethal. He took a sip as expected in social protocols and nearly malfunctioned at the bitter sensation. The humans found this amusing. "First time with Luna's coffee? Yeah, it's like drinking engine oil, but it keeps us awake for 3 days straight." For the next 2 hours, Xyler was inexplicably incorporated into their activities. A tall human named Hassan insisted he help string lights across the ceiling. A small, elderly woman called Florence pushed clay into his hands and demanded he express his essence. A bearded individual who introduced himself as Dr. Arthur Finley enthusiastically explained the mathematical principles of sound when Xyler expressed confusion about the dissonant music being played. "The beauty is in the chaos, my friend. Not everything valuable can be quantified." By nightfall, Xyler finally escaped to the roof where his damaged capsule had been concealed under a tarp to keep the rain out. He activated his communication array. "Scout Report 1.0. Landing coordinates compromised. Cover integrity maintained but strained. Current location, human communal dwelling designated the kaleidoscope. Population, approximately 28 humans engaged in non-productive creative pursuits. He paused, organizing his thoughts. These humans represent significant inefficiency. They appear to arrange their environment and activities based on feeling rather than function. They consume resources without measurable output. Their social structure lacks clear hierarchy. Their communication is riddled with illogical expressions and unnecessary auditory displays. Zeiler hesitated, an unusual occurrence. However, they display unexpected adaptation capability. Despite my unscheduled arrival, they integrated my presence without suspicion. They collaborate despite disorder. This requires further investigation. He sealed the transmission and looked out over the human settlement glittering with artificial lights. Something unfamiliar stirred in his neural pathways. Scientifically, he labeled it mission-related curiosity and dismissed further analysis. "You can't be serious," Zeiler stated flatly. 1 week had passed since his arrival, and repairs on his capsule were proceeding slower than optimal. Dead serious. Maya grinned, holding up a bizarre construction of wire, fabric, and flashing lights. "The parade float committee bailed, so we're saving the Wildflower Festival by building our own. And you, my mysterious friend, are exactly what we need. You organize things so perfectly. I have no experience with parade constructions." Perfect. Fresh perspective. Besides, no one has experience until they do something for the first time, right? Zeiler found no logical counterargument to this tautology. Soon he was surrounded by chattering humans, overseeing the construction of what they called the most ambitious float in Wildflower Festival history. Despite his protests, his natural tendency toward precision and efficiency made him an ideal coordinator for their chaotic energy. "See? You're a natural." Hassan clapped him on the back with unnecessary force. "Knew there was a reason you fell from the sky into our workshop." "I did not fall from the figure of speech, man. Lighten up." This directive to lighten up confused Zeiler, as his mass remained constant. Yet he found himself making adjustments to accommodate these humans' peculiar methods. When Luna suggested they cover the float with recycled materials rather than purchase new ones, he initially calculated the inefficiency but was later forced to recalculate when their solution proved unexpectedly viable. Resource conservation through irregular channels, he noted mentally for his report. The following day, Dr. Finley approached Zeiler with an unexpected proposal. "We need music for when we push this monstrosity down Main Street. Luna says you were asking about our instruments." "I was cataloging them for," Zeiler caught himself, "for my personal interest." "Great. You're on keyboard. Rehearsal in 10 minutes. I have not studied your musical patterns." "That's what rehearsal is for. Just feel the rhythm." "Feel the rhythm," Zeiler repeated, processing the instruction without comprehension. Seated at the electronic keyboard, Zeiler observed the other musicians. Florence on percussion, Hassan on a stringed instrument, Dr. Finley with a wind instrument, and Maya inexplicably hitting various objects together. Their music had no discernible pattern or purpose, yet when they began playing, they somehow produced coordinated sound. "Just jump in," Maya encouraged. Zeiler placed his fingers on the keys and calculated the mathematical relationships between notes. He began to play a perfectly structured sequence. "Whoa, too mechanical." Dr. Finley stopped them. "Try again, but this time don't think so hard. Listen to what we're doing and respond. Respond to what stimulus? To what you hear, to what you feel." This instruction was insufficient, yet Zeiler attempted again. This time, he focused on the auditory input, noting how the others deviated from precise timing, yet somehow maintained coherence. He made tentative adjustments to his playing. "There you go," Maya shouted. "Now you're getting it." 3 hours later, Zeiler was playing with significantly less precision, but, strangely, greater group cohesion. The sensation was unusual. His fingers seemed to anticipate shifts in a musical pattern without conscious calculation. Once, When he produced a sequence that harmonized unexpectedly with Hassan's instrument, a peculiar reaction occurred. His facial muscles contracted involuntarily. "Did you just smile?" Maya asked, astonished. "Negative. A momentary facial spasm." That night, his report to his superiors was delayed as Zyler struggled to quantify the day's observations. The humans engage in collaborative creation without centralized control. Their parade construction and musical practices demonstrate emergent organization despite apparent chaos. Their methods are inefficient yet adaptable. He paused, noting an anomaly in his biometric readings. "I'm experiencing increased neural activity in regions typically suppressed by quantifier protocols, possibly a result of extended exposure to this environment. We'll implement additional self-regulation." The response came swiftly. "Report contains irregularities. Analysis suggests contamination. Recommend immediate sterilization protocol for local population and expedited mission completion." Zyler stared at the message. Sterilization protocol. The elimination of all life forms in the area to prevent cultural contamination. Standard procedure when a scout showed signs of deviation. Without analyzing his motivation, Zyler sent negative. Contamination reading false positive. Equipment malfunction. Require additional observation period. Why had he sent that? It was illogical. The Wildflower Festival was approaching, and the kaleidoscope pulsed with frenetic activity. Zyler found himself integrated into nearly every aspect of preparation. His capsule repairs were proceeding, hidden on the roof, but at a deliberately measured pace. "Zyler, emergency!" Maya burst into the small room they had allocated him. "The city denied our permit for the parade route. That is unfortunate, but not an emergency by definition. It is when the festival starts tomorrow. Apparently, some property developer made a big donation to the mayor's re-election campaign, and suddenly our traditional route is unsuitable. They're trying to kill the festival." Zyler processed this information. Why would they terminate a cultural celebration? "Because our neighborhood is up and coming now, which means rich people want to knock down our buildings and put up luxury condos. If they kill our traditions, they kill our community spirit, and it's easier to force us out." This explanation contained illogical elements, but aligned with dominance hierarchies Zyler understood. "What solution do you propose?" Maya blinked. "I thought you might have ideas. You're so good at solving problems." Zyler experienced an unexpected neural response to this expression of confidence. He considered the parameters of the problem. The permit denial is based on influence rather than regulation. Therefore, counter-influence may be effective. What leverage does your community possess? The solution emerged through collective discussion, a strategy that still puzzled Zyler but produced results. The kaleidoscope would redirect the parade through the public park, which required no permits, then host an impromptu art exhibition that would attract attention to their cause. "We'll need everyone's help," Maya declared. "Zyler, can you coordinate the logistics? You're the only one organized enough to pull this off." Again, that strange neural response. Zyler accepted the task, which extended well beyond his mission parameters. He found himself working late into the night alongside the humans, mapping routes, allocating resources, and calculating optimal timing. During a brief pause in activity, Florence approached him with a cup of herbal liquid. "Tea," she explained, her aged face creasing with what his database identified as kindness. "You've been working too hard." "Hard work is efficient," Zyler replied. "Maybe, but there's more to life than efficiency." She settled beside him, her small frame seemingly fragile, yet radiating calm stability. "You're a strange one, Zyler. You fell into our lives so suddenly, and now I can't imagine our little community without you." "I am temporary," he stated factually. "Aren't we all?" She smiled. "That's what makes connections valuable. Their impermanence." This concept violated quantifier principles of perpetual optimization, yet Zyler found himself unable to dismiss it entirely. He sipped the tea, noting the complex botanical compounds and the unexpected sensation of warmth that spread beyond mere temperature change. That night, his report was brief and technical, focusing on Earth's mineral composition and atmospheric conditions rather than his activities or observations of human behavior. The increasingly concerned responses from his superiors were filed without proper attention. The following morning, the Wildflower Festival began in glorious disorder. The parade float, a massive, shimmering construction representing what the humans called community resilience, rolled through the park guided by exuberant participants. Xyler, inexplicably, found himself playing the keyboard on the float's platform, his fingers moving across the keys without precise calculation, but with something the humans called feeling. As they reached the central pavilion, a crowd gathered. Xyler observed the diverse human faces, their expressions displaying what his database classified as joy, wonder, and connection. Children danced to the music. Elderly humans nodded in rhythm. Even unfamiliar humans joined the celebration without invitation or orientation. During a brief pause, Maya appeared at his side, her face flushed with exertion and emotion. "We did it. Look at everyone. The developers' representatives are here too. They didn't expect this turnout. The local news is covering it. This provides leverage for your community preservation." Xyler noted, "Yes, but that's not why we're celebrating." She gestured broadly. "We're celebrating because this is who we are. This is what matters. Creating something beautiful together." Xyler scanned the scene again, attempting to quantify this beautiful quality. The parameters escaped his analytical framework, yet he could not deny the observable effects. Humans forming spontaneous bonds, sharing resources, expressing synchronized emotional states, all centered around impractical, non-utilitarian activities. A small child approached him, offering a wildflower crown. Without protocol guidance, Xyler accepted it and allowed the child to place it on his head. The humans cheered. Something inside Xyler's neural network fluttered and expanded. That evening, as the festival continued with music and illumination displays, Xyler received an urgent transmission. "Scout mission compromised. Unacceptable delay. Secondary assessment unit dispatched. Prepare full report and extraction." Xyler stood on the roof, watching the celebration below, the implications clear. A secondary scout would evaluate his findings and likely recommend immediate resource extraction, regardless of indigenous population impact, standard procedure for potentially compromised missions. For the first time in his existence, Xyler identified the sensation in his processing center as alarm, not for himself, but for the humans dancing beneath the stars. "You're from outer space," Maya stated flatly. Xyler had just finished explaining his true identity and mission to the core members of the Kaleidoscope gathered in their common room. Their expressions ranged from disbelief to fascination. "That actually explains a lot," Dr. Finley mused, adjusting his glasses. "Your unusual knowledge, your learning curve with social customs, your weird obsession with classifying everything," added Hassan. "Not to mention your actual spaceship on our roof," Luna pointed out. "You do not seem appropriately concerned," Xyler observed. "I have just informed you that my species plans to extract your planet's resources, likely eliminating your population in the process." "Well, when you put it that way," Maya began pacing. "What exactly is this secondary assessment unit going to do?" "Verify my findings and determine the optimal extraction approach. They are unlikely to share my—" Xyler struggled for the appropriate term. "My evolved perspective." "Evolved perspective?" Florence asked gently. "I was selected for this mission because of my analytical abilities. I was expected to assess Earth objectively, without contamination from indigenous influences. I have failed in this regard." "You mean you started to care about us?" Maya translated. Xyler considered this simplification. "My neural patterns have developed abnormal responses to human interactions. This would be classified as a critical malfunction in my society. We call that friendship, buddy." Hassan clapped him on the shoulder. "Welcome to the messy world of giving a damn." Luna leaned forward. "So what do we do? How do we stop your people from turning Earth into a mining operation?" The standard protocol would be to demonstrate that extraction would be unfeasible due to indigenous resistance capability or resource contamination. So we either need to look scary or worthless, Dr. Finley summarized. Neither seems particularly achievable given the actual technological gap. The room fell silent until Maya snapped her fingers. What if we make Earth seem completely insane? Too chaotic to predict or control? Elaborate, Zyler requested, intrigued despite himself. Your people value logic, order, predictability, right? What if we demonstrate that Earth, or at least our corner of it, operates on principles so far outside your species' understanding that any attempt to apply your methodologies would fail catastrophically? Zyler processed this suggestion. Quantifiers do, indeed, avoid environments resistant to logical analysis. Such resistance suggests unpredictable risks. Then we give them the ultimate illogical experience, Maya declared. A full-scale demonstration of human weirdness, creativity, and emotional intelligence. Everything your species has evolved away from. The plan developed rapidly. A chaotic, collaborative process that would have horrified Zyler's superiors but now stirred something like appreciation in him. They would create an elaborate deception, using Zyler's technology combined with human unpredictability to present Earth as simultaneously threatening and worthless for quantifier purposes. Dr. Finley would leverage his scientific knowledge to create convincing but misleading environmental readings. Luna and Hassan would coordinate a community-wide performance of irrational behaviors. Maya would design visual illusions to confuse quantifier scanning technology. Florence, surprisingly, proved invaluable in developing psychological aspects of the deception. I was a behavioral psychologist before I became an artist, she explained when Zyler expressed surprise. Understanding how minds work helps me create art that speaks to people. In this case, we're creating art that will speak to your kind, just not in the way they expect. Over the next 3 days, the kaleidoscope transformed into an operations center for what they jovially termed Project Mindbender. Zyler provided crucial information about quantifier technology and psychology, while the humans contributed increasingly creative methods of exploitation. They'll arrive within 48 hours, Zyler announced on the third morning. We must complete preparations. Almost there, Maya assured him. One question, though. Are you sure you want to do this? You're betraying your own people. They're not my people in the sense you mean, Zyler replied, then paused, analyzing his own response. The quantifiers achieved perfect social harmony through the elimination of individual variation. We are components of a system, not a community. That sounds lonely, Florence observed. Loneliness is an emotional state we eliminated generations ago. And yet here you are, risking everything to save a bunch of illogical humans, Maya pointed out. Sounds like something evolved back. Zyler had no logical response. The secondary assessment unit arrived precisely on schedule, its capsule hovering above the park where the Wildflower Festival had taken place. As planned, Zyler met the new scout, a typical quantifier named Vexer, and began the formal debriefing process. Your reports have been inconsistent and delayed, Vexer stated without greeting. Explain. Interference from indigenous technology, Zyler lied, smoothly. The humans possess unexpected capabilities masked by primitive appearances. Demonstrate. Zyler led Vexer toward the kaleidoscope, where Phase 1 of their plan awaited. As they approached, the building appeared to shimmer and distort, a combination of Zyler's modified scanner technology and carefully placed reflective materials created by the artists. Visual disruption, Vexer noted with the first hint of uncertainty. One of many anomalies, Zyler confirmed. Initial assessment suggested primitive development, but deeper investigation revealed sophisticated camouflage of true capabilities. Inside, the real performance began. The humans had transformed the space into a bewildering sensory experience. Conflicting sound frequencies caused Vexer's translator to malfunction. Particular color combinations disrupted his visual processing. Seemingly random human behaviors followed patterns just complex enough to suggest hidden purpose without revealing it. Dr. Finley approached, wearing an elaborate headpiece designed to scramble quantifier bioscanners. "Welcome, visitor. We've been expecting another of your kind. Would you like to participate in our consciousness expansion ceremony?" "This human knows our nature," Vexer stated, alarm evident in his usually modulated voice. "As I reported, they possess unexpected awareness," Zyler confirmed. "Yet their thought processes remain resistant to logical analysis." Throughout the day, the humans executed their plan with surprising discipline beneath apparent chaos. Luna demonstrated inexplicable emotional responses that contradicted Vexer's predictive algorithms. Hassan performed music that contained mathematical patterns that approached quantifier communication codes, then veered into dissonance. Maya presented artistic creations that mimicked cosmic phenomena the quantifiers considered sacred. Each element was carefully designed to suggest that humans possessed just enough understanding of quantifier weaknesses to be dangerous, while remaining too chaotic to be worth the effort of conquest. By evening, Vexer was visibly disturbed, a significant achievement given quantifier emotional suppression. "This environment contains multiple hazards," he declared. "Your extended exposure explains your compromised functioning." "I have adapted to interpret their patterns," Zyler explained. "My conclusion is that resource extraction would require excessive security protocols, rendering the operation cost-prohibitive." Vexer performed his own scans, which the humans had anticipated. Dr. Finley had modified the building's electrical system to produce readings suggesting dangerous instability in Earth's magnetic field. Luna had distributed compounds that mimicked toxic interventions in the soil. Even the air had been treated with harmless particles that quantifier scanners would register as potentially corrosive to their technology. The final blow came when Florence implemented her part of the plan. Approaching Vexer with the calm dignity of her years, she initiated a conversation about interconnectedness and empathy, concepts specifically designed to trigger discomfort in quantifier psychology. "We understand your people's thinking," she said gently. "The desire for order is natural. But have you considered that perfect order leads to perfect stagnation? Your society eliminated variables like emotion and individuality to achieve stability, but in doing so, lost the capacity for true growth." Vexer stepped back. "This human is attempting psychological manipulation. Their species has developed emotional intelligence as their primary evolutionary advantage," Zyler confirmed. "Prolonged exposure risks contamination of our thought patterns. 3 members of my research team have already shown signs of deviation." This fabrication, suggesting Zyler had worked with a team now compromised, was the final component of their strategy. Vexer's mission included assessing contamination risks to the quantifier population. Extraction team deployment in this environment presents unacceptable risks of cultural contamination, Vexer finally concluded. Indigenous species demonstrates unpredicted resistance strategies involving psychological warfare rather than conventional defense. Recommendation? Zyler prompted, maintaining his professional demeanor despite internal relief. Quarantine. This solar system to be marked as containment zone. No further exploration until indigenous species self-terminates or evolves beyond current volatile state. It had worked. The deception had convinced Vexer that Earth was simultaneously too dangerous and too worthless to warrant quantifier attention. After Vexer departed to file his report, the kaleidoscope erupted in celebration. Zyler found himself lifted onto Hassan's shoulders, a flower crown once again placed on his head, as the humans chanted his name. "You did it. You saved the whole planet," Maya exclaimed, her face alight with what Zyler now recognized as joy. "We did it," Zyler corrected. "I merely provided information. The strategy was collective." "That's the most human thing you've ever said," Dr. Finley observed with a smile. 6 months later, Zyler stood on the roof of the kaleidoscope, watching the sunset. His capsule remained there, now repurposed as what the humans called an art installation and spare room for visitors to the increasingly renowned artist collective. The Wildflower Festival had marked a turning point for the neighborhood. The developers' plans had been temporarily stalled by community opposition, and the Kaleidoscope had become a local cultural landmark, partly due to the peculiar but fascinating technological sculptures that occasionally emerged from Zeiler's workshop. "Thought I'd find you up here," Maya said, joining him at the railing. "Stargazing again?" "Observing atmospheric light refraction," Zeiler replied, then added with newly developed humor, "also known as enjoying the sunset." She laughed, a sound that no longer registered as illogical but pleasant. "The community board approved our proposal for the Science Education Center. Dr. Finley is ecstatic. He says your design ideas will revolutionize how kids learn about physics." Zeiler nodded. "Simplified versions of quantifier educational models, adapted for human cognitive processes. The principles are universal." "Speaking of universal, do you ever regret it? Staying here? Giving up everything you knew?" Zeiler considered the question with the thoroughness it deserved. "I gave up certainty for possibility, uniformity for diversity. I calculate this to be a favorable exchange. But what about your people? Will they ever come back?" "The quarantine designation will remain in effect for approximately 300 years. By then, perhaps both our species will have evolved further." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the colors transform across the sky. Below them, Florence was teaching a community art class. Dr. Finley and Hassan were constructing a new sound installation. Luna was organizing the upcoming solstice celebration. Humans moving in patterns that appeared chaotic but contained their own beautiful order, one based on connection rather than control. "You know," Maya said thoughtfully, "for someone from a supposedly emotionless species, you've gotten pretty good at caring." "An unexpected adaptation," Zeiler acknowledged. "The quantifiers eliminated emotion because it was deemed inefficient and unpredictable. Yet I have observed that human emotional intelligence solves problems logic alone cannot address." "Is that why you stayed?" "A scientific observation." Zeiler turned to her. Practicing the smile he had been learning to produce naturally rather than through conscious muscle control. "No, I stayed because this is where I found belonging. This irrational, beautiful, chaotic place became home." Later that night, as the stars appeared above the city, Zeiler composed one final transmission to the quantifier homeworld, one he knew would be received but dismissed as contaminated data. Nevertheless, he sent it. Earth Final Report. The human's greatest resource is not their minerals or biological material. It is their capacity for connection despite difference, for finding harmony within chaos, for creating meaning beyond function. This capacity, which we eliminated from our species, may represent an evolutionary advantage we failed to recognize. Recommend reconsideration of emotional suppression protocols for long-term species viability. And transmission. He didn't expect a response. But somewhere in the vast distance between stars, his message would reach the quantifier communication array. And perhaps in some small corner of that perfectly ordered society, it might stir a question in another like himself. A tiny spark of curiosity about the messy, illogical, wonderful possibility of being human. Among the stars, there was perfect order. But here, on this small blue planet, Zeiler had found something better, a home. And he never wanted to leave.